early. We obviously saw the situation at the Formula One yesterday, and everyone's trying to become a body language expert. Did Mount's laugh mean that he's leaving? Is it not true? But a £50 million bid is being readied. How do you think that bid will be received by Chelsea? More negotiation to continue, or could that be enough to tempt them into saying yes?
I think with Mount, it's going to be a more drawn-out saga than people realise. So the fee will define everything. And Chelsea have said many times they don't want to lose Mason Mount. Pochettino has also indicated he wants to keep Mason Mount. And a bit like with Ugarte, there's two sides to this. There's the Mount side and there's the Chelsea side. So Chelsea argue they've done everything they possibly can to keep Mason Mount, and that if he leaves, it will be because the player ultimately gets a better offer and project and informs the club of that. And then they have to go from negotiating with Mount to negotiating with suitors. From Mount's point of view, there's a feeling that towards the beginning of the season and up until the end of the year, verbal progress was being made on a series of offers, and there was a formal framework to build upon. And then Mount's father, Tony, argues that as of January, Paul Winstanley took over the negotiations and the goalposts moved. And suddenly by February, it was a one-year deal to buy time with different terms that had been verbally discussed. And there's two sides to that. And since then, Chelsea decided to park discussions. I know we hear reports of them doing everything in their power to keep Mount, and that's true in the sense that they've spoken to the player. But Chelsea always said, end of season, the plan was to pick up formal talks. So we still have to understand whether Chelsea are going to try that. And if in the process of doing so, Mount turns around and says, I'm not interested anymore, then obviously Chelsea have to turn into negotiators with other clubs rather than with Mason Mount. Fee-wise, it's not true 85 million. I know we see some reports that high. I'm still told it's more around 75 million. And should somebody table that number, then there's a very realistic possibility that a deal would get done quickly. But Manchester United are looking more at under 60 million, which is why I've been reporting for weeks that there's a 15 to 20 million gulf in valuation between suitors. Liverpool feel the same way. Arsenal also feel the same way. 15 to 20 million gulf in valuation between suitors and Chelsea. So are they going to meet in a middle ground, or is this one going to drag on? We have to wait and see. And only time will tell whether or not something can change internally at Chelsea to allow for more optimism. Right now, the feeling in Chelsea is there's a high probability that Mount will go. And as soon as you get that feeling, you have to be braced to negotiate financially, which is where the suitors feel that they can get a deal at far more market value or even a bargain to be had. So under 60 million is Manchester United's plan. If they can't get Mount for under 60 million, they might have to pivot somewhere else, because until the ownership situation is resolved at Manchester United, they have to be very careful with their budget due to financial fair play concerns. And also, if they want to do early business, then they would rather, as I understand it, get two through the door for somewhere in the region of 100 million. This is the early business. So that might be Kim and Mount. If, let's just call them 50 million, 50 million, it could be Højlund and Mount. And again, that would be somewhere in the region of 100 million collective to begin with in the early part of the window. Then you can do outgoings. Then maybe the ownership situation is resolved, or the Glazers stay and put down more money. Who knows? But this is in the pre-planning stage where you're looking to get targets in early. And I'm told pretty categorically that Manchester United want two early signings, regardless of whether or not they get outgoings first and any more income. And if those two signings are ballpark 100 million and Mount suddenly becomes 75 million, it becomes a lot harder to get in that second player. And this is why I would expect Manchester United to be quite firm on their valuation for Mason Mount, even though if you're Erik ten Hag, you're pushing and pushing and pushing, because he does want this one done quickly and early and at all costs.
Yes, he certainly seems, you can tell it's a player that the manager is pushing for. It has the Man United fans really split down the middle, because he's not highly rated by a lot of fans, especially social media fans. but the manager they're backing absolutely raves about him. There's a super chat here from Pav, one of our long-term members and viewers. There's many reports yesterday that Amrabat could be linked to Man United, and how close is Kim Min-jae to Man United as well? The Italian media say it's almost certain to happen, and we've all seen that. I think Repubblica, El Mattino, and a few other big publications in Italy have said Kim Min-jae to United is fairly imminent. They're reporting a little different over here. What's your understanding around those potential 2 deals, Ben?
Kim's one Manchester United I've looked at for sure, and is one to watch in the first 15 days of the window, because that release clause is only active in those 15 days. Kim himself has always denied any of the rumours and the links, but I think Luciano Spalletti leaving Napoli for a 1-year sabbatical is going to be a big factor in all of this, because suddenly players that might have wanted to stay will see one exiting and maybe decide that they want a fresh challenge as well. So that one is a very realistic possibility. But again, we have to understand whether or not Manchester United can pull off that type of signing at that type of value with one more through the door. But Manchester United have made no secret of their interest within Kim, that's for sure. And who was the second player?
Amrabat.
Amrabat, I know a little bit less about, to be perfectly honest with you. We actually interviewed Amrabat at CBS a few weeks back, and he was fully focused on the end of the season and not really wanting to speculate or speak about his future. And the reason for that is because Fiorentina still have football to play. And they have had a pretty decent season, actually, because they finished 8th in the league. They got themselves to a Coppa Italia Cup final that unfortunately they lost, and now they've still got the West Ham game. So I think that Amrabat is going to be one just to wait a little bit on. I'm aware of the reports that you're saying, but I don't actually have anything to add to that at my end. And if I don't have any extra information, I don't report any extra information. I wait and see. So I'm well aware of reports that Manchester United are moving, but having actually spoken to Amrabat via CBS, it was made very clear in the interview that he wouldn't have any movement or make any decisions or get embroiled in anything until at the time the Coppa Italia final was complete, and then this game against West Ham United. And I think that's on the 7th of June. So maybe the week after next, we'll have more movement on that front.
Yeah. And you says here any news about Maddison and the United takeover? There has been no change over the weekend. Ben reported on it last Thursday. So go back and watch the Done Deal show from Thursday. Ben goes into that in detail. It's all timestamped, Luke, regarding that. In terms of James Maddison, seen him linked to Tottenham. We know there's always been long-standing links to Arsenal. Could he be moving to North London this summer? From you're obviously I haven't even mentioned this. You're obviously your relegated club. Very sorry for you that Leicester went down, Ben. But Maddison, could he be on his way to North London?
North London, or also a little bit further north, in fact, a lot further north to Newcastle United. So Maddison is highly sought after, and there was always the very strong possibility that Newcastle would return